This is Silas Grant, and I am back with another installment of How Should I Introduce You? And I've been joined by two great guys today, Mike Powell and George Rice. Thank you guys for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I Before we get started, I just want to read a little bit about the both of them, and then we'll get right into the conversation. Mike Powell is a leadership consultant and business coach who ignites passion, growth, and energy for positive change in people and organizations in every sector. A dynamic speaker and trainer, Mike draws upon the lessons learned from his unique life experiences to help individuals, teams, and organizations improve their performance and achieve success. With over 20 years of experience, Mike has delivered speeches, facilitated engaging workshops, and led large scale consulting initiatives for organizations across the country. Through his inspiring message, audiences across the globe have been inspired to reach their goals. Mike, welcome to How Should I Introduce You?
Silas, thank you, brother. Thank you.
All right. My man, Coach George Rice, educator, coach, consultant, speaker, author, whose superpower and love language is listening to understand versus responding. Coach Rice, man, welcome to How Should I Introduce You?
Appreciate it, man. When you hit me with that, I was like, okay. A lot of people know me as Coach Rice, but when I normally meet people, I say, yeah, my government name is George E. Rice III. But everybody, all of my friends call me Chief. So
That's right. I remember you saying that. Yeah, I do
yeah,
remember that.
yeah. So
Yeah,
it's cool. We're informal. We've known each other for quite some time, man. And so,
yeah,
as I get to know people, we'll talk about my government or whatever and what I do. And like Mike has, we both worked in the educational field for some time and work with teams and individuals. So, um, I tell people that's just what I do. Who I am is just chief that
yeah.
went to Morehouse. And had you gone on the yard back when I was there, they were like, George Rice. You'd be like, nah, bro. Like, Chief. Oh yeah, he over there. So that's just one. Some people didn't know my government until I walked across the graduation stage, man. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. So I could have just said, "Yo, this is just Chief. What's up?"
Yeah. And it's funny, right? I thought about the fact that, since I've met you, I call you coach, right? Never called you George. I do know that people call you chief. And Mike, people know you as MP,
hmm
MPD, right? And the thing about the both of you, which was one of the reasons why I wanted to make this connection, was that both of you come into the room with like this built-in synergy, right? And both of you attract the audience, right? Even without trying to do that. And I know that for people who have that energy, there's often an expectation that you're supposed to be cheap every time I see you. You're supposed to be
hmm
MP every time I see you.
Yeah.
How do you handle that, one, the both of you? And then two, when you have those moments where you don't want to be in that mode, how do you respond to that?
Go ahead, Chief.
That's a great question. I took an acting class about 4 years ago. Well, I was taking for about a year and a half. And one thing they said is, in each door that you walk through, you're really a different character. And if you ever really notice it, your demeanor changes. And not that you're, you know, faking or nothing like that. It's just, let's just be honest. The way we walk into our homes is different from the way we might walk into church, or different ways we might walk into the club or the happy hour, right? Let's just be honest. And so I do my best to be even keel. I think most people that know me, even guys that I grew up with that knew me as Chief, some people didn't know my real name growing up. They just knew I was Chief. One of my boys, who we've known each other since we were 8 years old. He was introduced when we were in college. He was introducing me to some people, and he was like, "Yeah, man, that's my boy Chief." Said, "Yo, man, this dude could ride a willie for like 2 blocks." I was like, "That's how I'm known, bro." But I guess I was always known as the dude that was just super even keel. And it's funny, a lot of people, and why the reason I introduced myself the way I did, it was because even though I'm a speaker and a coach, um, my superpower is listening. Now I get the listening superpower from my mom and the ability to talk at length from my pops, but I really feel like listening has really given that's given birth to me being able to communicate, just listening to people's stories and so on and so forth. So to answer your question, going in every room, I try my best to be as genuine as possible. Like, yo, Chief, what's good, man? Bruh, I'm struggling, but I'm good. It's good to see you. I'm never a person that's, if it's just one of them days, I'd be like, yo, man, just give me 30 minutes, bro. Give me a 20. I mean, in order to just kind of, but very rarely do I run into scenarios where my energy is off. I'm very mindful of that. And if I know that I'm going somewhere and I know I'll need to be, I need to have a certain demeanor, I kind of check myself, 30 minutes to an hour before I get there. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, no, it does. It does. How about you, Mike?
um, similar to Coach, man. I think just being true to who I am. Anytime I show up, a lot of people who know me, kind of see me, and I'm like a fun-loving guy. I like to have a good time. Um, but personally and professionally, that's me. So, if we're in a coaching session, if I'm with a corporate client, if I'm doing a consulting engagement, I'm still that same guy. I'm the guy that always wants to, um, create the energy in the room where people feel comfortable. And the way that I do that is by showing up as my authentic self. Because I don't want to be in a space where I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to be in a space where I can't um, feel good and express what's going on with me, and be open and honest. And I learned a really really long time ago, that I had the I guess the capacity to kind of influence people to be themselves because they saw me being myself. And so, I don't know why I've had that influence. It's just something that I've noticed, and I've learned about myself, from a young age. Maybe because I'm tall, maybe because I'm an only child, and people say I have that. Growing up, people say you have that only child ignorance and that only child confidence, meaning like I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to act that way. I didn't know that I was supposed to shy away from being a certain kind of person or showing up a certain kind of way. I've always been myself. And so I think when you can be in a space and you realize that, hey, Mike's being comfortable, he's being himself, he's having a good time, whether he's on stage swag surfing at homecoming, or if he's, in front of an audience, doing a goal setting workshop, we're always going to see the guy who wants to make sure people are comfortable, wants to make sure people are getting some value out of that environment that they're in. So, that's what I always try to do. And um, I found that when I don't do that, um, my impact, isn't the same. When I'm not being authentic to myself, when I'm not comfortable and I feel like, um, I have to present myself a certain kind of way because I'm in front of this group and they may be questioning what my background is or why they're in my audience or why they're sitting across from me, and I start second guessing myself. I've learned that it just does not come across. So, just over years of just being in different spaces, being in the room where, I'm the youngest person, or I'm the only man in the room, or I'm the only black man in the room. I think people always want to know, like, what is this guy bringing to the table? Why is he here? What's going on with him? And, I think just being myself has kind of helped me to be comfortable, whether I want to be leading the conversation, or whether I just want to sit back in the audience. However I decide to show up that particular day, I'm still going to show up as myself. And I think that has helped me to get comfortable with, um, being in a lot of different environments, a lot of different people, a lot of different groups. I think, one of my superpowers is being able to engage and connect people of very, very different backgrounds, old, young, different diversity elements, different demographic groups. I have always felt comfortable being able to connect with people who are different than me and then helping them connect to what's going on. And that has just been because I've always felt comfortable with who I am and how I show up.
Man, it's funny, right? So you guys have talked about superpowers, and literally, maybe within the last 2 weeks, I really verbalized what I felt is my superpower, right?
And I only said that because Coach said his first. Like I don't,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be left behind. Like I ain't had no superpower. So
So, let's talk about that for a minute. Though. Like, so, Coach, how did you realize your superpower?
Again, I've been an educator for 20 years and a coach for 20 years. And a lot of people, I'm kind of like Mike. I think me and Mike, we've never met before, but I feel like we're probably a lot alike. Like, it's always like, let's connect. We're the people like, yo, y'all need to be this person. But Silas, you're the same way. Like, yo, y'all need to connect or whatever. And, whether it's, whether it's, people that you hook up for business purposes. There have been people that I've connected to end up getting married, or folks that end up dating and having children or whatever. But either way, just people that are like-minded, or if they live in the same area. And I'm that same way now. Former students of mine, hey, if you're or former coworkers, if you're applying to this particular job, well, let me reach out to somebody, see if I can find out who's on the search committee, if I can give you a leg up on what they're looking for, change something in your um change something in your bio, or change something on your resume or your CV. And but you know what? I gathered mine two ways. Number one, I saw my parents being servants, right? They were educators. And then my dad got off into sales, but I come from a family of educators on my father's side. So I saw them serving. I saw my grandparents always serving. So I always saw the power in literally people serving. And so I arrived at my superpower of listening, because y'all know growing up, when grown folks around, kids couldn't say much anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so being that we were around, I would listen to my older cousins and my older sister. And so I knew what not to, I knew when I got to be a certain age, what not to say to women.
Right,
Like,
right,
for real.
right,
I
right,
knew what not, I may not have known
right.
what to say, but I knew what not to say by listening,
Right,
right?
right.
But I really, I'm that person that Mike, just like we said, when we show up places, we like to make sure that we hopefully you energize the room, but stabilize the room and make sure everybody feels comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Whether I'm the first person in the room, or come in the middle, or the last person. And that's why I say, because we've all been in scenarios where people come, you might be late to the party or whatever, and folks are trying to put you on blast, right? And we've all had that scenario. And so instead of me always reacting so quick, I'll just kind of take a pause and I'll be like, okay, how well do I know this person? Should I really put them on blast while do I have a quick comeback? But let me think about it. So everybody's kind of like, but again, I think I developed it because I've seen how some of that stuff can go wrong when people react. But then number two, um, my daughter told me, because my wife had said one time we were meeting and she says, well, you give dad adjectives. What do you feel like, if there's one word to describe dad, what is it? And so my son started, he said resilient. And then my wife started and she said fearless. And then my daughter said great listener.
Hmm.
And so I was like, look, if my baby girl says I'm a great listener, because y'all know, I mean, Mike, I don't know if you have kids, Silas, I know you got baby girl, but
Yeah.
if when your kids tell, I mean, and this was bare bones. This was like, no, don't sugarcoat it. And that's one thing me and my family never do. And so when she said that, I was like, dang, I guess if she said so, right, being a parent, because parents are always the ones that are known for talking. But when your child says you're a great listener, I'm like, okay, maybe that is my superpower.
Yeah.
Well, my daughter is 15 months. I'm sure she says I'm a great listener. I just can't understand it right now. So, So
I love
whatever
it.
that language is that she is speaking right now that I have not decoded yet, I'm assuming she's giving me all the great adjectives.
Well, one thing's for sure, when she speaks up, hey, you can't ignore her.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt.
Yeah, man, it's funny, right? So I was, as I mentioned, really just coming to grips verbally with what I feel my superpower is, and my superpower, from my estimation, is that I don't have any enemies. Right?
Mm,
Maybe there are people that I'm not getting along with right now, but I don't view people as enemies, right? And so, in many instances, I'm the person who has to have the difficult conversation with someone because the other person can't have the conversation at all with that person, right?
mhm,
Um, I find myself in situations where I have people that know each other that don't like each other, but they both like me, right? And so
mhm,
I'm always kind of managing those situations. But the thing about it, when I began to kind of write notes about it, because I sat down one day and just wrote down some things, and I realized there's a responsibility that comes with any superpower. And for me, with mine, being timely with my response, um, accepting that everybody may not like the fact that I don't have enemies, right? People will make you choose sides sometimes, right? And I have to stand firm and say, I just don't see the world that way, right? The other thing that I had to learn, especially in 2020, is really making sure that I'm not passing judgment on people, because if I'm constantly talking crazy about Coach Rice to Mike, if I don't have any enemies, one day I might have to work with Coach Rice. And then
mhm.
Mike looks at me like, well, we've been talking about this guy for like
Right,
18 months, right?
right.
So, I wrote down like 8 or 9 things that I have to maintain in order for this power to actually work. And so, Coach, with the power that you have in listening, what are the responsibilities that come along with that?
Mm, great question. I'm like you, Silas. If I have any enemies, it's because they don't really know me. They've never taken the time to know me. I'm definitely that dude that's a peacemaker. Um, I ain't no goon, but I ain't no sucker either. You know what I mean? That's just the way. That's the way I carry it.
Mhm.
But the responsibility becomes um, to make sure that I lead with that superpower. Because let's just be honest, fellas. There are times, you're talking to your lady, or you're talking to talk to your boys or whomever, and sometimes they don't necessarily need your input. They just need you to listen so they can sort it out.
Mhm,
So my master's is in counseling, and one of the first rules they tell you is that as counselors, we don't solve people's problems. Period.
mhm,
We listen, and then we ask questions so
mhm,
they can help them. We help them help themselves. And so I think the way to kind of embellish that, or strengthen it, is to make sure I lead that way, like literally listening. Like I just accepted a post 3 weeks ago, with Montgomery College, working in their diversity office. And it's just, I'm feeling out the team dynamics. Like I'm literally the new guy rolling in, and I'm like, okay, let me just listen, you know. And I think yeah, well, we hired you because you're qualified. I'm like, I know, but every job I've been on, I'm like, let me listen first. I have a whole lot of ideas, but let me listen first. Let me find out what didn't work. Let me find out what doesn't work. Let me kind of get a feel for people's working styles and what their expectations are. And then when I feel the time is right, then I'll lead with, okay, what do you need? And I'm always the type of guy, like, it's in my nature. How can I support? Right? Like, Silas, you hit me up. I was like, bump it, I got it. Like, you're the type of guy, I'm like, okay, if you ask me to do something, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make it happen regardless, because you're a good dude. We've always had a great relationship. That's another one of my superpowers, is supporting. But
Yeah,
I do that through listening. So I think it just has to be a thing where I make sure I do that. I'm intentional about listening first before I give any feedback. So I'm just really intentional about that.
sure, sure, sure. Um, Me knowing the both of you, I know that there have been some events in your lives, respectively, that have really pushed you in the direction that you've gone in. And I know for the both of you, there have been some experiences, some tragic experiences, right? Mike, I recall many years ago where a good friend of yours who was a musician passed away, and
Hmm.
that caused you to really take life to another level. I know you and I developed the Man Up boot camp
Hmm.
after Trayvon Martin was murdered.
Yeah.
I know Coach Rice, you experienced a friend of yours on campus who died, and you both talk about these stories and how they pushed you. Talk a bit about life, and more specifically how those tragic events have really pushed you to value life more for what it is.
Mm. Man, sorry, you digging deep today. Um, so, so I think for me, I've been really fortunate that I've always been around people who have been good role models, um, and have helped me to take a perspective of what can I learn from these situations. So that's just something that I've really benefited from. But specifically, working with my dad now in our company, and we're doing organizational development is a technical term, but coaching, supporting, training, facilitating, right? All of those things. Um, the the thing that really makes you effective and great at this work is being able to take something off a piece of paper and make it come alive for people, and you make it come alive for them through your life experiences. You're being able to connect with something that's on a piece of paper. When I go out and teach a class, I have a curriculum, I have objectives, I have a gang of content that people can read, but that's not what they pay me for. They can read that stuff on their own, right? They pay me to make that stuff meaningful, to make it make sense to them so that they can be self-reflective, to think about how does this content relate to me, and how can I take that and apply it to my life so that I can be more effective, I can help other people, I can reach my goals. And I think that being around my dad and knowing that this was a possibility of a career, of a way to make a living, um, at a very early age. I mean, probably, maybe in college, I decided that this was the kind of work that I wanted to do. And so from that point on, I always shifted my perspective to what can I learn from this situation, and how can I really um, take something and help other people benefit from it. One of the it's probably going to sound crazy, but one of the things that I really, really enjoy doing just in my quiet time, when I'm just with myself in the car, at home, while I'm meditating, stretching after a workout, I really love reliving stories and telling them to myself. I mean, I literally will have an experience, and I will reflect on that experience, and I will walk myself through that entire experience as if I am going to retell that story to somebody else. I mean, it's crazy because sometimes I get to the point where I'm driving and I may stop and get out of the car and like go to 7-Eleven, and then I get back in the car like, all right, where was I in this story? And I'm just telling the story to myself,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And when I started taking that perspective in my life, I realized that I can take what I do and extract some learning stuff out of it and help other people learn from those things. And so, now I've always had that ability. So now, when I'm in front of an audience, I can pull up a story that just popped up in my mind, just like spur of the moment, and I can give them a very detailed story and explanation and tell them what I learned as if it just happened. But it's because I have always been intentional about saying, what did I learn from this situation, and how can I help other people benefit from it? And so even though, like Coach Rice, I have a lot of titles. Um, I think I have a core message. All of those titles that I have, I think at the end of the day, my intent is the same and my messages are the same. And so I can take my stories, I can take my experiences, I can take things I'm reading, I can take conversations that I've had with other people and extract the key things that can help people learn from them. And I think that's really been able to help me to connect with people and them to see that, yeah, I'm not just trying to talk to hear myself talk. I'm not just trying to like show off, and I'm really sharing because I want you to get better. And so I think that's been something that's been really helpful for me.
How about you, Coach?
You know, yeah, because you were there when I told a story about Leon.
Yeah.
I think from that experience, you know, um, literally, I remember it like it happened an hour ago because 30 minutes went by, and this dude went off on his own, and I'm like, dang, ain't this whole thing we was talking about? I am my brother's keeper. In 30 minutes that I wasn't on my post, he's gone, and I'm like, yo. But again, the only reason I wasn't there with him is because I was checking with my crew, like, hey man, we about to run to the store. And then I got caught up, right? And then he just left. And instead of me saying, hey man, don't leave without me, right? And to me, it just taught me, you know, like we all know, life is super precious, you know. Um, and I always tell people, I say, yo, that, who knows? It could, had I gone with him, it could have been two dead men instead of one. Or
Mm,
I might have caught the bullet. He might have been the one telling the story.
mm,
And so from there on, I think I've just learned to be, since I don't have any quote unquote biological brothers, I've just always, I've always relished brotherhood, period. Um, and not this, not necessarily an unrealistic kumbaya thing, but it's like all the things, we've all been through similar things. Don't care what it is. I mean, we've all been through similar things, and it becomes a thing where um we just have to be more aware of why we're here.
yeah.
And again, it was just one of them things where, you know, your grandmother tells you God takes care of fools and babies.
Mhm.
Clearly, I ain't got no pacifier in my mouth. And it
Mhm.
was one of those things where, something told me to go upstairs, you know, but something didn't stop Leon from leaving without me. And so for even now I'm like, I don't necessarily carry the guilt, but I carry the torch, like, okay, don't ever let me slip like that again.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Where I have an opportunity, but hey man, no, 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 no. Remember where you going? And I think now that has carried into, this is probably a behavior that I'm repeating from my parents, because when my daughter first started to drive, and even when my son started to drive, I'm like, all right, where you going? All right, who all is going? All right,
Mhm.
what time should we expect you? I'm sure we all got that when we were trying to get the car from
Mhm.
our parents, right?
Mhm.
But even, to me, I believe that experience probably prepared me to be a parent way before I was ready, right? Because it's just like, okay, where you going? Let me make sure I got all the intel. Yeah, you can't, once your children leave you, ain't nothing you can do. You just pray that God will and the ancestors will cover them. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, um, again, listening.
Mhm.
Let me listen. Let me listen to what the ancestors are telling me. Let me listen to what the creator is telling me and move accordingly, man. So I think that's the one thing to make sure, when I say I am my brother's keeper, it's a thing where, like, look, man, how can I serve? If there's nothing I can do for you, who can I do something for that's connected to you? And that's why when I tell people that, I mean it. It ain't just like a thing like, look, man, if Mike, if you and I, if there's anything that I can do for you and yours, like your sister, your uncle, based on the relationship that we have,
Mhm.
let me know how I can serve. I may not be able to solve the problem, but I can introduce you to somebody else that can help you solve the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. The one word that has been said a few times on this installment, and it's something that I've heard the both of you talk about, um, you know, to a large extent is the word intention. Mike, I think you were the first person who was really beating that in my head 10, 15 years ago, like intention, intention, intention. What's your purpose for walking in this room? Um,
You gonna tell the dance story, or you're not gonna tell that story? You're not gonna
well,
tell
I can.
that.
can I can.
It's too late now. You got to tell it now.
Ah,
You done let
I
the cat
thought
out the bag.
I thought that's where he was going. I just wanted to prepare myself mentally if that's what he was about to say.
That's one of those that's one of those stories where before we do like the pre-production,
We gotta talk about
we want to talk about that.
it.
But no, long story short, Coach, man, I'll tell like an abridged version of the story. Mike and I went to an event some years ago, right? And we were at this event, and there was a group of people that we knew that were already there. And there was a young lady who was in the group that we did not know, but she was with the group of people that we knew. And um, everybody's having a good time. Everybody's enjoying themselves. And as I mentioned early on, Mike can be the life of the party, right? And we walk in, and everybody's having a good time, and Mike comes in and people are greeting us, and this one woman that we really don't know is a woman that there were guys among us that were like, hey, she's really attractive, right? Like, who is she? We've seen her before, but we don't quite know who she is, right? And so I saw Mike start getting in his Mike P mode, just kind of like having a good time in the party. And there was this other girl in the room who it seemed like she wasn't really enjoying herself. It seemed like she wasn't really comfortable. And Mike went over to her, grabbed her, and started dancing with her, right? And so, she was surprised. It didn't seem like a lot of guys were approaching her that evening. And he pulled her in the middle of the floor, and like everybody's clapping, and everybody's, oh, go Mike, and whatever her name was, right? They were saying that for her too. And so they danced for maybe a song or two, and then like he gave her a hug, and then he walked off. And the very girl that everybody had been talking about walks over and grabs Mike and starts dancing with him. And the wildest thing is, I knew that was going to happen before it happened. I knew it was going to happen. And it was like, he looked at me like, I told you, like, I told you. And here's the thing. He didn't want her. He was trying to show the guys that this is how you capture the audience, right? And I'm going to go to somebody that nobody would think I would go pull over, and I'm going to have her on the floor with me. And it's going to compel that person that you're really trying to target to come to you. So that is always something that's one of those stories I'll never forget, because I thought it was such a great illustration, like in a very informal environment, of how, intention and attraction works.
So
So he was
coach,
the original.
when I die and Silas is speaking at my funeral, we're gonna be, 105 years old, and Silas is gonna tell that story of that event and how that happened, and how I started hitting him with being intentional from that day moving forward. But I think it's really important, man, because we just move through the world so many times. My dad used to say, we move through the world wide-eyed sleep, and we just kind of moving. And when you start slowing yourself down and realize what your power is, realize what your intentions are, realize what it is that you're trying to achieve, you can make an impact. You can make some things happen. But I think sometimes people are even scared to recognize what their power is and what their potential is. And so, they're scared to even tap into it and even consider the power of living intentionally, because they either don't want to fail, or they don't want to acknowledge that they actually have some powers that they are gifted with. And so, I've always tried to be intentional with what I'm going after, so that I can more often than not get the results that I'm after, or support the people that are around me and getting the results that they're after.
Indeed. Mike, did you go to Hampton too?
You already know. You already
Oh,
know.
for sure. Okay.
You already
Okay.
know.
I was going to say, you said an attractive woman. Now I'm gonna tell y'all something. Now my daughter's a Hampton alum, right?
Okay.
But I'm gonna tell y'all. People say, "Oh man, y'all got Spelman across the way." I said, "Listen, have y'all ever been to Hampton University? The women at Hampton, it's definitely something in the water or something that attracts all the beautiful black women." And there's something in that water that attracts beautiful women to Hampton's campus. So I can only imagine what this sister looked like.
Well, you
Um,
you you said it, not us, coach. So I just want to make that clear that you made that designation. So all my friends from Howard and Spelman and FAM and A&T don't come from
listen,
my head. Coach Rice said that, not me.
listen, look,
I agree, but I didn't bring it
listen.
up.
One thing is for sure. Okay, we all know the beauty of the Black college experience, right?
For sure.
But one thing I think we can all agree, hater is not in my DNA or my bone marrow, and so I reckon game recognizes and respects game.
Yeah.
And I tell people, yeah, with some beautiful women that went to Spelman, don't beautiful women that went to Clark, even
Yeah.
Morris Brown,
Yeah.
and I said, but it's another level. I mean, and there's some beautiful women at Howard. Hampton went. I'm not just saying that. It's just another level. I'm just giving y'all props. I'm just saying it's another level. And no disrespect to any HBCU.
Right.
It's just another level. And if you don't know, you need to go.
Oh,
Yeah, man. Um, one of the things, Mike, you just talked about was, really being afraid of your power. And
mm,
it reminds me of Our Deepest Fear by Mary
oh,
Williamson.
yeah.
And somebody shared that with me just yesterday.
Mm,
And there's so much from that, those passages that really stick out.
mm-hmm,
And I think one of those things is that it is our light, not our darkness, that
mm,
most frightens us. And
mm-hmm.
I've experienced that, multiple times over. But was there ever any point where you just made a decision? Either one of you can answer this. You made a decision that, I'm no longer going to reduce myself. Is there any, direct experience or situation that caused you to say, this is the last time that I dim my light for others?
Um, you know, Sal, we've talked a lot about it before. Working in a family business is a challenge, and especially working for my dad. Following in his footsteps. He has a huge reputation, and as much as people say that, I know a lot of people, and I can make a great impact, and I'm the life of the party, or whatever else people say. My dad, I learned it all from him, and so now, working with him full time, coming up in his shadow and his footprints, I've had to really figure out how to establish myself. Who am I within this business? Because, in the work that we do, especially with a small business, people hire you because of who you are, of the impact, of the energy, of how connected they feel with you. And it wasn't until I decided that, it's great to have the opportunity to work in a family business and to have a mentor like my dad who's able to coach me and guide me and propel me towards success. But at some point, I need to kind of step into my own lane and be myself and do the things that have make me comfortable and make me be the person who I am. And so, I found myself doing that, with my coaching, my personal coaching, my goal setting workshops, working with lifting as we climb, early on in my career, working with young people, all of those things, even though, I was still connected to, the family business, I always wanted to be clear about creating my own lane. So I wasn't walking in the room and I was my dad's son, and that's how people knew me, right? That I was given this opportunity because of something that he created and someone that he called. But I wanted to create the energy and the reputation for myself, and so. In this business, it has been really, really challenging. They say the hardest person that you're ever going to work for is a person that used to have your job. And so My dad had this job and has this job and has done this for many, many, many years. And so, trying to find what my niche was and my lane is and my approach, to do the same thing that he's done forever, but do it my way, has been really, really challenging. And it's still a challenge. You still got to figure that out. But I knew it was something that was important to me.
Sure. How about you, Coach?
The year was 2017, 2016 or 2017. I've been speaking for a while, but I had some stuff up on YouTube or whatever. But and I had an Instagram account probably for about 3 or 4 years before I put anything of me speaking up there. Um, and then I said, man, look, get over the fear of what somebody might say, because this is what you love to do. Stop worrying about what people think, because you have to remove yourself and realize that something that you say is going to connect with at least one person. And if you rob that person of that particular message, you know, don't say you want to be in, don't say you want to make an impact if you're not willing to take the risk. And so I
Hmm.
realized, I said, I'm encouraging young people to lead. I'm encouraging young people to be themselves. And I'm like, man, wait a minute, I'm a freaking hypocrite.
Hmm.
And it's
Hmm.
one of those things where, like, no, just cut it loose. And over time, you'll improve. You'll know what you're supposed to say. And more so, it's not even about what I'm supposed to say. It's about what people will actually take home from what you say.
Hmm.
Because again, like Mike said, you know, people do business with you not because of what you do, but because of who you are.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's like, how did you approach it? Were and again, Mike, we all know how it is to run a small business. I mean, it's literally based on relationships.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less. Anybody who's done business on a small, medium, or large scale realizes that it doesn't matter about your product. Your product is the last thing that really
Hmm.
comes. It's like you have to establish, cultivate, and sustain relationships. And if you're not willing and able to do it, why you? Good luck. Good luck. You
Good luck.
know,
Yeah.
good luck. Unless you just have like a magnetic
A
personality.
fantastic product. Right.
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 Yeah. Unless
Right.
unless your product
Yeah.
goes before you. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that was the time I said, you know what? Yeah, it's time to stop dimming my light. And so, some of the stuff that I post now is years old. It's years old, but people are like, yo, I really dug that. I was like, thanks. I said, it's from. But once I got over that fear, I was like, okay, let's go.
But you know what, Coach? The other thing that I think is, why this work that we do is so important is because there are a lot of people, to your point, that are used to being in an environment where their product speaks for them, where they don't have to sell themselves, where they come from, a background, an environment where that sort of speaks for who they are. You've worked for a big company, you've gone to a big school, you have a bunch of degrees, and they kind of, all of those things kind of enter the room before you. But then you get into that room and those things don't speak anymore. And a lot of times people don't know how to present themselves outside of that context. I was a football player, and everybody knew me because I walked around campus with my uniform, or I was a cheerleader, or whatever my background was. I had a great reputation in life. I was in the band, or I was from this neighborhood, or I was whatever, right? But at some point, you got to learn how to present yourself. And so, I think that's really, really important for people to understand that, yeah, all that stuff is good, but at some point, you got to show and prove who you are, and all that fluff, all that stuff around you, that might get you in the door. But now, what are you going to do once you get inside that door? And if you're not prepared to demonstrate, to be accountable for, how you're showing up and what you're showing up and who you're showing up as, and all that stuff is just going to get you in the door. But it's not, what I always say is, what it took to get you here is not what it's going to take to sustain you. And so, we got to make sure that we're helping people understand what they need to do to sustain themselves and to move forward.
Yeah, I agree. I tell people the biggest compliment I get all the time is that, yo, I saw your stuff on social, but you're actually the same dude when I see you. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Why wouldn't I be? And
Yep.
I tell people, I'm like, look, I'm not the type of person that's going in and I'm like, no, we gonna crack jokes. We gonna if I make mistakes, I'm gonna make fun of myself. It's what I
Yeah.
do. It's
Yeah.
what I do. And I'm never going to the moment I stop being myself is the moment I need to sit my butt down and stop doing
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, well listen, I really appreciate the both of you for jumping on, man, and being a part of this. And for those that have been watching this, man, I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. We look to do more conversations like this in the future. And these are two great people that anybody that gets a chance to meet them, you should. So, Mike, Coach, man, I again appreciate you guys for being on with me.
Thank you, Sal. Thanks, Coach. Great meeting you. Definitely looking forward to connecting with you in person, if not virtually again real soon, and we can figure out some ways to create some synergy.
Absolutely, man. It's great to meet you. And for real, I know Silas attracts good folk and good people. And I got the Hampton vibe. I was like, no, I said, no, he went to Hampton.
Yeah.
I already knew. I already knew.
You
But
already knew.
yeah, but for real, I mean, just as a point of just HBCU privilege, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we all have heard from people. Sometimes it's our own people, about what HBCUs aren't, or well, why don't you go here, or why don't you go there?
Mhm.
And we all know we went there for a reason, and the degree was not the reason we went there. Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
that's the end product, but I believe people choose institutions that really help them get to understand who they are and what they don't want to do with the rest of their lives. And I think us being connected just by the HBCU family, and then of course the work that we all do, because you do who you are. We are all servants. We are all people who love other people, and we love synergy, and we love connecting people, man. My coach always tells me, money is the last thing that comes. It's the
Mhm.
last thing that comes. There's other stuff that you have to learn and build before the money comes, in terms of the work we do, man. But I tell people, I knew that I didn't want to be miserable in my adult life.
Mhm.
And I tell people all the time, two things you don't want to be is unhappily married and unhappily employed.
No
And
doubt. No
I
doubt.
said that's really always my the way I try to live my life. So Silas, Mike, man, MP, y'all can call me Chief, man. It's good to connect with just good brothers, man. And we need to do more of this offline,
Yeah,
as well as online. So, man, I
Yeah.
appreciate you, Silas, for creating this platform. Thanks for the invitation.
sure thing. So, for those that are watching, until the next time, be good.